It's backed by a 90-day money-back guarantee. Go to peaklife.com/Megyn. That's PIQUE life.com/Megyn to try it for yourself. Again, that's PIQUE life.com/Megyn. Guys, welcome. Great to have you.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you, Megyn.
Awesome. And Alex is also author of a new book called Breaking the Law. You got to check it out. Okay. Let me just start with you on this, Mike. I know you're a DC resident, and what Trump is saying is that he is invoking this statute that allows the feds to take over law enforcement in DC if things get out of control in the nation's capital. And he's saying that has happened. All the DC people seem to prefer crime, saying there's no emergency. Crime is down. We don't need the feds. Oh, great. Enjoy your murders because they're the fourth in the country when it comes to the number one murder rate. They're number 4. It's really nothing to be celebrating for them to be in a position to say, we don't need your help. That's absurd. But no one's saying thanks to Trump. They're just criticizing Trump. So what is this really about?
This is about President Trump making sure that DC does not devolve into a third world Marxist hellhole, which is what has happened in DC over the last 5 years. I bought a house in DC in the hood when I went to work on the Senate Judiciary Committee. And I'll tell you what, I'm the only white guy on my block, or I was until white liberals just moved in. The black people in DC do not like this crime. And guess what? They are the victims of this crime. You have this violent underclass in DC who has terrorized the city for the last 5 years. And they've done this since the BLM and Antifa riots and defund the police movements, because the DC police are not allowed to do their jobs. They're not allowed to arrest criminals. When they arrest criminals and take them into the Biden DC U.S. Attorney's Office under Matthew Graves, they're turned away. When they arrest criminals and take them into the DC Attorney General's office for the local crimes, they're turned away. We have a new sheriff in town with President Trump, Attorney General Pam Bondi, Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, FBI Director Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, his deputy, Janine Pirro. We have a new mindset with the Trump administration that this is our nation's capital. It is a federal enclave, and we're not going to let local Democrat, incompetent, corrupt politicians destroy our nation's capital.
Here's what you get from the Washington Post to try to make the case that this is unnecessary. By the way, still has their little tagline, democracy dies in darkness, under it. Okay, it was very dark during the Biden 4 years, and they were out to lunch, but fine. Quote, they're interviewing residents of D.C. Quote, this is a safe city, but overhearing and witnessing gang threats and then watching the camera footage of the thuggery is disturbing, end quote, said one resident, speaking on the condition of anonymity over concerns of personal safety. This is the best they can do. This guy goes on to say the crowd of teens, it was roaming the streets, this crowd, and appearing to be checking for unlocked cars and things to steal. But everything's super safe. I just need to stay anonymous while I say that so that I don't get murdered or attacked. I mean, Mike, I feel like DC is the beneficiary of the fact that Trump moved there. A very rich and powerful man happened to move there and said, this is not good enough. And my only question in watching Trump talk about this today was, how about the other cities? Because New York is practically still in my backyard. I moved to Connecticut, as you know. Baltimore is absolutely disgusting to the point where we've all been calling it Balta-less for many years. Chicago and its murder rate on the South Side, where blacks are killing other blacks and Hispanics like it's going out of style. The left never says a word about it. They seem fine with that. LA, same. So this came up. Somebody asked Trump about this. Trump commented on whether he might try to go beyond D.C. Here's the SOT in 0C.
We have other cities that are very bad. New York has a problem. And then you have, of course, Baltimore and Oakland. We don't even mention that anymore. They're so far gone. We're not going to let it happen. We're not going to lose our cities over this. And this will go further. We're starting very strongly with D.C., and we're going to clean it up real quick, very quickly, as they say.
Do you expect more cities to follow DC's path if this goes through? So the idea is that Chicago, LA, San Francisco, would they expect similar action what we've seen in DC?
I mean, we're just going to see what happens with it all. You're going to have, we're going to have a tremendous success in what we're doing. Other cities are hopefully watching this. They're all watching, just like everyone's watching here. They're all watching, and maybe they'll clean up, and maybe they'll do this and get rid of the cashless bail thing and all of the things that caused the problem. I mean, if you go back, this whole thing with cashless bail is a disaster. So many problems came that we never had before. So they're watching us today, and if they don't learn their lesson, if they haven't studied us properly, because we're going to be very successful. I have zero doubt about that. It's going to be. It's a question of will it be really fast, like the border. We did a great job. Tom Homan was great. As you know, our secretary did a great job. They did a great job. There's no games. They didn't play games. And we're going to have the same thing here. But then I'm going to look at New York in a little while. Let's do this. Let's do this together. Let's see. It's going to go pretty quickly. And if we need to, we're going to do the same thing in Chicago, which is a disaster. We have a mayor there who's totally incompetent. He's an incompetent man. And we have an incompetent governor there. But when I look at Chicago and I look at L.A., if we didn't go to L.A. 3 months ago, L.A. would be burning like the part that didn't burn. But hopefully L.A. is watching.
As much as I'd love to see that, Mike, does he have the legal authority to go beyond D.C.?
He has more constitutional power, more constitutional duty under Article 2 to execute the laws of D.C. because it's our nation's capital. It's a federal enclave, and any statute like the D.C. Home Rule Act of 1973 that purports to strip the president of his executive power to enforce our laws in D.C. Is unconstitutional. He can enforce federal laws in other jurisdictions, sovereign jurisdictions across the country and states and local governments. For example, the sovereign state of Illinois and then the local jurisdiction of Chicago. He has less power there than he does in Washington, D.C., but there are still federal laws that the Justice Department can use to prosecute crimes in those cities. He can also use the civil rights laws to take over police departments if he has to, if they're not enforcing the laws in a way that stops racial discrimination.
There it is. Honestly, you could make that case right now for Chicago. We saw Eric Holder's DOJ taking over police department after police department, and Joe Biden's DOJ did the same, trying to say that they were racist cops and that the feds had to run these departments now. Well, how is it not racist that, the mayor of Chicago, who is a black man, but seems totally fine watching blacks and Hispanics kill each other at disproportionate rates, while the whites who live on Michigan Avenue are totally fine? I mean, why hasn't somebody gone there and said, you know what, we're taking over? Chicago, the south side of Chicago needs martial law, for God's sake. I have spent time there. I have met with the moms, half of whom who live in this area have a son who's been killed or a son who's in jail, not to mention their brothers and their husbands. So, honestly, if the races were reversed, this already would have happened, Mike.
Absolutely. And I say this, we cannot let American cities devolve into these third world Marxist hellholes. We're not Mozambique. And if we let these cities devolve into these third world Marxist hellholes, the entire country pays the price. We have to pay the price with when you have these fatherless homes, you have the failed government school monopoly, you have these crime-ridden neighborhoods, you trap these poor black kids in intergenerational poverty. And I think the Democrat Party does this by design because they are Marxist and they want generations of victims. They don't want these people empowered with school choice and opportunities. They want them trapped. This is an industry. It's the civil rights industry, and it's disgusting. And I'm glad that President Trump is actually doing something about this because these are deep blue states. He's not going to win Illinois. Republicans are not going to win Illinois. But we have a moral duty as a country to make sure that these people are not trapped in intergenerational poverty.
Yes. And like just the fact that he's starting with the homeless people in DC, like, I'm sorry, you're not going to be able to stay here anymore. We don't know where they're being moved to. He is taking federal control of the police department in Washington. He said he's deploying some 800 National Guards troops in response to crime rates that he said were out of control. The left, every paper is pointing out that they're down. The crime rates are down in 2024 versus 2023. You have the fourth highest homicide rate in the country. Okay, just stop. Just stop. Down from astronomically high to just grossly, disturbingly high is not a W. Take the help that's being offered to you. And he declared a public safety emergency, invoking a section of the District of Columbia Home Rule Act that grants him the authority to temporarily seize control of the department. He is talking about, part of the problem there. And this was one of the stories that kicked it off was the so-called Big Balls, the guy who worked for Doge, and that was his nickname, got the hell beaten out of him the other night when he and I think it was his girlfriend were getting into their car and she was threatened and he took on a group of teenage thugs who beat him up, but he stood his ground and he really took it on the chin. And this made national news. Trump saw this clearly because he commented on it. Look at this poor guy. And then Judge Jeanine, who's now just taken over as the U.S. Attorney for the District of D.C., I'm very much looking forward to that, spoke about the weak provisions in place down there when it comes to juvenile crime, which is out of control. It's SOT 0E.
I see too much violent crime being committed by young punks who think that they can get together in gangs and crews and beat the hell out of you or anyone else. They don't care where they are. They can be in DuPont Circle, but they know that we can't touch them. Why? Because the laws are weak. I can't touch you if you're 14, 15, 16, 17 years old and you have a gun. I convict someone of shooting another person with an illegal gun on a public bus in the chest. Intent to kill? I convict him. And you know what the judge gives him? Probation. Says you should go to college. We need to go after the D.C. Council and their absurd laws. We need to get rid of this concept of, no cash bail. We need to recognize that the people who matter are the law-abiding citizens. And it starts today.
All I could think when I watched that, Mike, was President Trump gets heat from the left for hiring Fox News personalities. You know what? He understands people having a strong ability to communicate on top of basic competencies work. They can convince a public to get behind certain policies. And Judge Jeanine is one of the best in the business when it comes to clear, concise, powerful communication. That was Exhibit A.
Yeah, and she's also been a state prosecutor and a state judge for, I think, 3 decades.
Yep.
So she's clearly the most qualified person imaginable to go in there and help President Trump clean up D.C. Look, this, again, this crime does not affect the liberals in Georgetown or Logan Circle. They can afford to have the security. This crime disproportionately harms poor Black people trapped in these Northeast and Southeast neighborhoods in Washington, D.C. So these Democrats who pretend like they care about Black people should get behind these efforts to clean up Washington, D.C. because it is poor Black kids who are getting shot, who are getting killed in Washington, D.C.
Megyn, can I chime in? Because I left D.C.
Oh, yeah,
I
go
lived
ahead,
there.
Alex.
I lived there and I left right around the coronavirus. And this was part of it. When I got there and in the Barack Obama years and in the first Trump years, it was a blast. I lived in the Foggy Bottom area and I would come out of my apartment and I would jog to the Lincoln Memorial. I jog along the Potomac with my dog, jog down Prospect Avenue, which people recognize from The Exorcist, on the cobblestone streets. It was unbelievable. But by the pandemic, it was boarded up buildings. It was Black Lives Matter riots in the streets. Every other building had a window blown out of it. It was boarded up in preparation for it. People were trying to leave as fast as humanly possible. They completely gave up on that city. So it's not just some of the worst neighborhoods. Some of the best neighborhoods got incredibly unpleasant. It is an absolute bummer to be in D.C., and I've spent enough time around the president to know he doesn't like bummers. He's a cheerleader for this country. He wants things to look good and to be presentable and to be classy. It's not classy what's going on there. It's a disgrace that is our representation to the rest of the world as our nation's capital. Since he's in a position to do something about it, it's so great that he is, because he wants our country to be excellent again and to be thriving. It's not thriving, our nation's capital. It's a disgrace right now.
Exactly. I hope he does New York next. As a former New Yorker who still owns property there, he knows New York is a problem too. It's disgusting. It's honestly, you come to New York City and just look out your window as you come into the city from LaGuardia or JFK. It is like Calcutta. It's absolutely disgusting. The amount of trash, not to mention homeless people. By the way, when I lived on the Upper West Side for 14 plus years, the homeless people would chase us. I'd be in the park with my children. They would chase us in the park. It's not the way it used to be. And I always just sort of assumed this is leftist rule. This is the problem. It was fine under Giuliani, got better. Bloomberg did a good job. And then you had that communist de Blasio take over who ruined New York. And now we have Eric Adams, who did absolutely nothing to really help it. And we're about to triple down on stupid and put Mandami in there. My point is simply New York is a mess. And I never even considered that the feds might be willing to possibly help us. The only answer to that is yes, thank you. Although our leaders are too stupid. Just want to make another point. Let me give you a couple wraps of the headlines about Judge Jeanine, okay, after her confirmation. The mainstream media had you believe that she was no more than a Fox News person. And by the way, it's fine to be a Fox News person, okay? I can speak to that personally. It's not very easy to become a main star on Fox News. You have to have a certain set of skills, which are valuable. But Judge Jeanine, there's a reason we call her Judge Jeanine. Like Mike points out, she's been a judge for years. She was a U.S. attorney. She was an attorney, a criminal prosecutor for 3 decades. She put some of our worst criminals in jail. She knows what she's doing when she's enforcing the law. NPR dismissed her as ex-Fox host. Senate confirms ex-Fox host, Pirro, as top federal prosecutor. Like, what's she doing there? You know what I mean? Like it's Courtney Friel, who just got named U.S. attorney for D.C. USA Today, Judge Jeanine, in quotes, Pirro, like it's not a real thing. Like she's not actually a judge. Pushed election falsehoods. Now she's Trump's pick for D.C. prosecutor, completely ignoring her legal background. ABC News. The Senate has voted 50-45 to confirm the nomination of former Fox News host Jeanine Pirro to serve as U.S. attorney for the district. Is that her only qualification? She's just a Fox News. Is that it? They did the same thing to Pete Hegseth, ignoring his war background when he became Secretary of Defense. It's a way of dismissing people. It's ridiculous and it's disrespectful. Okay, so here's the facts, though, by the way. In the 90s, she stood up one of the first law enforcement sting operations against sexual predators on the internet. In 1977, she helped create the Domestic Violence and Child Abuse Bureau in Westchester County. She was the first ever chief there. She created an Elder Abuse Bureau to prosecute crimes against the elderly. Her reputation was so widely known that online predators referred to suspected police officers in the internet chat rooms as Pirro's boys. I could go on. She's the real deal. So F these people who try to diminish her. Okay, moving on, because speaking of crime, let's talk about Tish James. It's getting interesting. Okay, was there a person involved in prosecuting Donald Trump who enjoyed going after Trump more than Letitia James? I mean, Fani Willis is close. Alvin Bragg, I grant you, close. Jack Smith kind of kept his powder dry. He kept it behind the scenes. Letitia James was numero uno. And I'll just give you a walk down memory lane before we get what's happening to her as she was campaigning for New York State Attorney General SOT 3.
I will never be afraid to challenge this illegitimate president when our fundamental rights are at stake. I believe that the president of these United States can be indicted for criminal offenses.
Will you sue him for us?
Oh, we're going to definitely sue him. We're going to be a real pain in the He's going to know my name personally.
That man in the White House who can't go a day without threatening our fundamental rights.
Yes, we need to focus on Donald Trump and his abuses. We need to follow his money. We need to find out where he's laundered money. We need to find out whether or not he's engaged in conspiracy. It's important that everyone understand that the days of Donald Trump are coming to an end.
I look forward to going into the office of Attorney General every day, suing him, defending your rights, and then going home.
Okay. That was super fun for her while it lasted, Alex. And it didn't work out for the entire prosecution team, like up and down the East Coast going after Trump. But Tish James did manage to get this absolutely bullshit verdict against him, trying to bankrupt his company. Anybody, even someone as rich as Trump, who's now valued at over $5.1 billion, cannot delve out $500 million, which is what that judgment is up to, with ease. They don't have that kind of liquidity, but she's still going after Trump to try to get it. And now she spent how many years lecturing us on how no one is above the law? And it's a principle that's come back to bite her in the ass. So explain what's happening.
This is totally glorious. And thank you, Megyn, for reaching out to me. It happens to be my book, Breaking the Law, just came out this week, where I spent a year investigating these cases against Trump. Each one of them was worse than I had anticipated in terms of the political persecution of Donald Trump. And it is superhuman that he survived it and won the election. And I call for a number of investigations, probably at least a dozen, and there will be more. So I got good news for you. This is the beginning. We are just getting started with the investigations. But Tish James was clearly the number one on the list who was open and blatant, saying the number one issue in this country is defeating Donald Trump. Nothing else matters. In the meantime, crime got worse in New York, and she's going after Trump for what was a victimless crime. There was no actual people who'd complained or banks in this civil case that Trump had done anything to them. She volunteered this to try to portray him as some sort of a criminal and use what I believe was clearly illicit means to do so, treating him like a criminal even though it was in civil court. But I'll address the thing you mentioned with the final judgment, where he's being asked to pay $460 million for a victimless crime. Again, there were no complaints against him. He didn't owe anyone a penny. To level this against anyone would have bankrupted any other president in history. As far as I know, Trump's $175 million bond that he had to put up is still out there. They still have $175 million of Donald Trump's money today, as far as we know, which is a total outrage. He's supposed to be leading the free world. He needs all these distractions. Clearly, this was directed. And by the way, there's White House involvement as well. She was meeting at the Biden White House regularly during this time. Obviously, this was election interference, trying to rig the election via lawfare.
That's exactly right. So, Mike, she was out there time and time again saying no one is above the law and talking about salivating, looking at his assets, like his building on 40 Wall Street. Here it is in SOT 7, just as a reminder.
If he does not have funds to pay off the judgment, then we will seek, judgment enforcement mechanisms in court, and we will ask the judge to seize his assets. We are prepared to make sure that the judgment is paid to New Yorkers. And yes, I look at 40 Wall Street each and every day.
Newsweek reviewed a document from the Attorney General's office, her office, that lists the properties owned by Trump that she claimed had been fraudulently and misleadingly represented in value. These are the ones she was thinking about seizing and is still apparently thinking about seizing. Trump Tower, 40 Wall Street, Trump International Hotel and Tower in Las Vegas, Mar-a-Lago, Trump National Golf Club in Westchester, Trump International Golf Links in Scotland. There's a real question about whether she could do any of that. But this is one of the many reasons why very few people are shedding any tears that Tish James herself is now in some legal trouble because she appears to have committed mortgage fraud, which she denies.
I would say this to Big Tish. You better lawyer up, because nobody is above the law. We know that she applied for a mortgage in Virginia in 2023, and she said that this home mortgage was for her primary residence. The problem is that she was the New York Attorney General, and under New York statutes, you have to be a resident of New York. So I don't know how you could be a resident of New York under the statute and have your primary residence in Virginia in 2023. And she has bigger problems than just mortgage fraud. As we've been discussing on your show, Megyn, for 3 years now, since the Mar-a-Lago raid, these Democrats, politicians, and operatives engaged in an illegal criminal conspiracy against rights under 18 U.S.C. Section 241 when they politicized and weaponized their offices to go after President Trump for non-fraud, for non-crimes. And they tried to bankrupt him with Tish James and Arthur Ingeron in New York for paying back sophisticated Wall Street banks on time, in full, as agreed, with interest, with the sophisticated banks required to do their own due diligence. They tried to throw President Trump in prison for life 4 times for non-crimes. They tried to take him off the ballot unconstitutionally in Colorado and Maine and elsewhere. And the Biden regime tried to take off President Trump's head when they underfunded his Secret Service protection twice and said that he was the gravest threat to democracy. And President Biden said to put a bullseye on President Trump's head. The hunters from before the election are now going to be the hunted for the next 4 years. And so I hope they understand that retribution is a crucial component of justice. It restores the victims, and it's a powerful deterrent. So justice is definitely coming.
I agree. I completely agree. I had this debate with Alan Dershowitz before the election, saying they will not learn unless it's done to them. No one's talking about making up crime. It's just if we kick the tires and we find some, you're not getting a pass because you invented some. Coming after Donald Trump. You created crime out of whole cloth where none existed. If we want to kick the tires and find crime you actually committed or appear to have committed, you're going to have to deal with the full force and effect of the Trump administration DOJ. Alex, your thoughts?
Yeah, Megyn, I want to chime in on the hypocrisy element here because you brought up the desire to seize these properties of Trump's. This case hinged on the value of Mar-a-Lago, which they relied on some assessor for tax purposes ranging from $18 million to $28 million from 2011 to 2021. Okay, Trump appraised Mar-a-Lago at $739 million. Let's do some math here. If you put a 1 acre property on the market in that area of Florida, you're probably going to get about $40 million for it. 2 acres. I did a lot of comps on this while I was doing my research. 150 to 200 million for 2 acres. How big is Mar-a-Lago? 17 acres. It's a historic property. It's 17 acres. The thing could be worth $2 billion. She's treating it like it's worth $18 million or $28 million. If that's not criminal in the literal sense, it's certainly criminal in the figurative sense that you would base an entire case based on that.
Well, I mean, in her defense, she does seem too dumb to understand the value of properties. Just take a look at her mortgage applications. She couldn't even fill those out adequately. Go ahead, Mike.
I was going to say that Mar-a-Lago is one of the most unique properties in the world. It is the only property that touches both the Atlantic Ocean and the intracoastal waterway. I've been to Mar-a-Lago several times. It's a beautiful piece of property. A tennis court at Mar-a-Lago is worth more than $18 million. It is easily worth $1 billion. And as Alex said, probably more.
Alex, can we talk about what's happening now against her? Like the mortgage fraud accusation. She says it's BS because she says, and just so people know, just to be clear, she applied for a mortgage in Virginia, and federal officials are now investigating whether she lied on her loan documents for a house that she purchased there in 2023. Yes. In that paperwork, she said the home would be her primary residence as she was serving as Attorney General in New York. But her lawyer, Abby Lowell, longtime Democratic lawyer, has claimed that it was a mistake. He says that the feds have cherry-picked an August 17th, 2023 power of attorney that mistakenly said the property was going to be her principal residence, and at the same time ignored her very clear and in an all-cap statement 2 weeks earlier to the mortgage loan broker that, quote, this property will not be my primary residence. It will be Shanice's primary residence. So your thoughts on the defense she seems to be getting ready for in Virginia?
There's two major problems here is that all this happened right when she was trying to hold Donald Trump accountable for mortgage fraud. So she theoretically should know what she's doing in this case. And there's multiple improprieties. There's not just the whether or not she's some sort of a clerical error, but there are numerous mortgage documents in different instances that she seems to have misrepresented. Another one was that she had a property that she had misrepresented as only having 4 units when it actually had 5. So, and then she mismarks whether or not something's her private residence or primary residence. She's consistently, at a minimum, sloppy and stupid with her paperwork, but more likely she's the one who understands it and is trying to do something fraudulent on her own to get herself favorable deals. And she's obsessed with this. She's just obsessed with mortgages.
Well, here's the other question, Alex. Why do the mistakes always go in her favor? If she,
always, every time.
Right? So it's like one thing if you genuinely make if you are genuinely making a mistake, you're going to have some that benefit you and some that don't. Or possibly you will go back after the fact and correct your mistakes. But Tish James seems to make a lot of mistakes in her favor only. Is the 4 property, but she listed it at 5, or sorry, it's the reverse. It has 5 properties, but she listed it as 4.
Is that
in Maryland? Is that the one in Maryland?
I think that's the Virginia one, if I have it off the top of my head.
So there's one in Maryland, there's one in Virginia. But in any event, she's doing a bunch of real estate deals.
No, it is a Maryland one. You were right. I apologize.
Okay. She's doing a bunch of real estate deals outside of New York State and seems to be giving a sleight of hand legally, always to the way that it will benefit her bottom line.
Well, but this is the principle when she talks about how the number one priority is to go after Donald Trump, that this is how the left thinks, is they see lawfare as a way of trying to solidify political victories, win political victories. And I think there's a lot of evidence to back them up. We've totally neutralized the media. We've neutralized the entertainment world. Academia has never been weaker. It feels as though this is how the left primarily feels like they can do their political best, is by trying to use the law in order to do that. So when you see the left, you think that they believe politics is above all else. It's above family. It's above God, certainly above truth. They look at this and think, how do I use the law to score political points? And that's what Tish James does every time. She tries to benefit herself, get more money and power for herself. And then if she can use it to go after Donald Trump and her political opponents, she'll do it, and she'll do it shamelessly. The only thing that's the least bit admirable about Tish James is that she'll actually do this to your face. Everyone else lies about it and acts like they're so virtuous. She's the one who you might corner her, Megyn, and she might say, yep, I did to get Trump, and that's what I care about. That's all I care about.
It's true. Yeah, at some level, you have to respect that. Mike, you wanted to weigh in.
Yeah, I was going to say, didn't the New York Post also reports that Big Tish listed her father as her husband for mortgage applications in 1983 and 2000?
Not to be confused with Ilhan Omar, who actually married her brother. So I want to keep it straight, Mike. But the other thing, I just want the audience to be clear. So you've got this potential criminal investigation into Letitia James on the mortgage fraud and the alleged mistakes she's been making on her real estate investments. And then you have what you just mentioned, Mike, which is an investigation into her for this violation of rights, this conspiracy against rights, which has a very amorphous name. But that's something else. That's the Trump DOJ looking into whether her, not a prosecution, but her civil case that just tried to bankrupt Trump and get all of his buildings was itself corrupt, was itself a bastardization of the law meant to get a political opponent as opposed to meant to genuinely restore justice on a mortgage or on an application that she says inflated values. Meanwhile, none of the banks who were the alleged victims complained at all. So those are 2 different things she's dealing with right now, Mike.
Yeah, that's exactly right. This is the 18 USC Section 241 conspiracy against rights investigation we've been talking about for 3 years since the Mar-a-Lago raid. When you politicize and weaponize law enforcement to go after your political opponents for non-fraud and non-crimes, that is the textbook classic definition of conspiracy against rights. And I would say this, we have 2 U.S. attorneys who the Senate just got confirmed. You have Judge Jeanine Pirro in Washington, D.C. You have Jason Redding Quinones, my friend, who just got confirmed down in the Southern District of Florida. Those are 2 jurisdictions, 2 venues that you could open up this probe, because remember, this conspiracy also involved doing the Mar-a-Lago raid. So maybe they can open up a special grand jury in Fort Pierce, Florida. Maybe they get Judge Cannon as the judge on that case. And then maybe you start issuing subpoenas for every one of these bad actors, these Democrat politicians, these judges, these prosecutors, these attorneys, these other operatives, both inside and outside of government, who engaged in this obvious criminal conspiracy against rights.
Yeah, Mike, Megyn, in 30 seconds or less, can you just describe the claim conspiracy against rights?
Yeah, I mean, conspiracy against rights is a civil rights statute. And when you use the power of governments, government actors colluding amongst themselves or with private citizens to violate the constitutional rights of Americans, like they did to President Trump with this lawfare, that is the definition of conspiracy against rights. It is a very serious federal civil rights felony. These lawfare Democrats better lawyer up, because I think they're going to go to jail.
Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, I think that this is the one I'm more excited about, much more so than the mortgage one. The mortgage one's fun, but this is the big one to me. This is actually justice being served for President Trump and his supporters, where she tried to subvert our democracy in the 2024 election by trying to bankrupt the standard bearer of the Republican Party. And she did this by taking novel legal approaches if you're being charitable, doing stuff that's extra legal if you're being less charitable, as I would. In the meantime, she's having these illicit White House visits. She's treating Trump like a criminal, but in civil court. Theoretically, that she should be representing people who have complaints against Trump. No one complained. The banks love dealing with Trump. They wanted to continue to do business with him. And she's out there leveraging a cruel and unusual punishment. That is cruel and unusual punishment, a $464 million victimless crime fine. No one's ever seen that before in history. The definition of unusual and cruel. No one else could survive it. Clearly, she had no regard for Trump's civil rights. And this is what I want to see prosecuted more than anything else.
Just as a reminder on that case that she, quote unquote, won with Judge Engoron against Trump, here was Kevin O'Leary speaking to the implications of this ridiculousness. Watch.
I'm shocked at this. I can't even understand or fathom the decision at all. There's no rationale for it. I would never invest in New York now, and I'm not the only person saying that. What about new money like this that I'm talking about, like a $4 billion data center? Not a chance I would put that in New York. Zero probability. Never. Every investor's worried because where is the victim? Who lost money? What does this say about the bar, the legal bar in New York? Aren't they going to question this judge? What is this? $355 million, and there's dollars as a penalty, and there's plus interest at 9%, and there's no victim? This is not a Trump situation. This is a New York problem now.
Mr. Wonderful telling it straight. All right, I want to get a couple of other legal issues addressed here before we wrap this up. J.D. Vance speaking out this weekend on possible Russiagate indictments coming. Molly Hemingway over at the Federalist was saying she thinks we should be calling this Obamagate. I don't think she's wrong. That's a better word for it. It is Obamagate. It's Obama who redirected the intelligence community to give him an intelligence assessment that dovetailed with his own personal beliefs, which were fake, by the way. He knew they weren't his sincerely held beliefs, about Trump working with Russia to steal the 2016 election. He knew that it was a Hillary Clinton idea to say that Trump did this falsely. He knew that that information was coming down the pike and that it was Hillary generated, and he still went along with it and told his intelligence community to go along with it. That is what the documents that have been revealed over the past month reflect. He denies it. Here's J.D. Vance talking about where now the Obama piece of this, in other words, investigating the people who perpetrated Russia on us, where that's going. Sat 9.
I absolutely want to see indictments, Maria. Look, of course, you've got to have the law follow the facts here. You don't just indict people to indict people. You indict people because they broke the law. But if you look at what Tulsi and Kash Patel have revealed in the last couple of weeks, I don't know how anybody can look at that and say that there wasn't aggressive violations of the law. What they basically did is they defrauded the American people in order to take Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign talking points and turn them into intelligence by defrauding the American people, defrauding the intelligence agencies, lying about what the intel said. They would take something that supported a Hillary Clinton campaign talking point, and they would overemphasize it and exaggerate it. They took anything that actually contradicted that narrative and they buried it deep. And through that, they actually laundered Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign talking points through the American intelligence services. That's a violation of the people's trust. That's a violation of what our intelligence services should be doing. And I absolutely think they broke the law. And you're going to see a lot of people get indicted for that.
Whoa, there was the news right there at the last minute there, Mike.
Wow.
You're going to see a lot of people get indicted for that. Do you believe that? And what do you think, besides conspiracy against rights, what would be the potential criminal charges?
Well, yeah, let's step back. And we've been talking about this for 3 years. This is all part of the same conspiracy. Hillary had her illegal home server as the Secretary of State with not only our nation's most classified secrets, which is espionage, but also with her Clinton Foundation pay-for-play foreign bribery scheme. She's doing official acts in exchange for tens of millions of dollars going into the Clinton Foundation, possibly, right? And so she got caught with her illegal home server. She took a hammer to the phone. She took bleach bit to the server. She thought the evidence was gone, but maybe, just maybe, the Russians and the Chinese and other foreign adversaries hacked her server and were going to release it before the 2016 election. Hence why Perkins Coie, her outside law firm, worked with the intel officials. They made up the Russian collusion hoax. They got illegal spy warrants on the Trump campaign because if this came out before the 2016 election, they wanted to be able to say this was a campaign dirty trick by the Trump campaign. And you said, that's crazy. How could you think that? They did the same thing with Hunter Biden's laptop from hell of the Biden family corruption in 2020. The 51 former intel officials worked with the CIA. They deplatformed the New York Post. This lawfare against President Trump is because he declassified and was going to release Crossfire Hurricane. That's why they're trying to destroy him. That's why they tried to almost get him killed.
That's, I mean, among other things, are basis to have this case go forward in South Florida, which would be much better. I don't think we have to spend too much time on it, Alex, but much better for the Trump administration than Washington, D.C., where they will win nothing.
Yeah, and this is one of the patterns here, is that a lot of cases are just decided once the judge and jury are impaneled, depending on the region. The judge shopping is out of control. I spoke to President Trump about this personally, and he's outraged about it. But there's not an easy fix. The best fix is just keep winning elections wherever we can, and that's a long-term process. It's winnable, but it takes a while. But the reason why we need to have accountability, particularly for Russiagate, is the downstream effects of it. One thing I just learned recently is that the one criminal conviction of Donald Trump, the Stormy Daniels case, which was another totally bogus case, a lot of it was based off of Michael Cohen. The FBI got its warrant to surveil Cohen's Gmail via the Justice Department, the special counsel, Robert Mueller, for the Russiagate investigation. If there wasn't a Russian collusion hoax, then the U.S. Attorney's Office of the Southern District of New York might not have gotten access to Michael Cohen's Gmail, which is what they based the one criminal conviction of Trump off of. So no Russian collusion hoax. That means no criminal conviction for Trump, no convicted felon branding, no onerous appeals process he's probably thinking about right now and should be leading the free world. All of that stuff is related to Russiagate, which is why accountability is necessary.
How soon would you guess we'll see indictments, Mike?
I don't know how soon we'll see indictments. I know it's been publicly reported that there is a grand jury investigation. I imagine that with Jason Redding Quinones getting confirmed as the U.S. attorney down in the Southern District of Florida, there may be a separate grand jury investigation down there. He's a good patriotic American. His family escaped Cuba. He doesn't like Marxists. He doesn't like Marxists who politicize and weaponize the government to go after your political enemies. So I imagine Jason is going to be doing something down there.
Okay, before I let you go, I want to play you this. It's a little off topic, but I got to get your reaction to Beto O'Rourke, perpetual loser down in Texas, weighing in on what they're going to do when it comes to immigration if the Democrats take power again at SOT 17.
Next time we win power, we're going to drive that car like we stole it. We're going to legalize every dreamer, every dreamer's parents, every hardworking American doing backbreaking work that makes this country so goddamn great in the first place.
Oh, my Lord. Mike?
I think that whoever is running for president in the next 4 years, whether it's JD or Rubio, whoever else, should take that video and play it on a loop for the next 4 years before the next presidential campaign.
Alex, it's unbelievable. You've seen this too, right? Separate and apart from the substance, the forced profanity from these leftists who don't know how to dispatch it is so uncomfortable.
It's so uncomfortable. They're all so phony. Robert Francis O'Rourke is one of the phoniest. He's a fake Latinx, that he's a white guy who impersonates a Latino person. And it's so obnoxious. They keep trotting him out there. But just remember, this is how the left thinks of illegal aliens. They think illegal aliens are the best Americans. They're not just equal. They actually think they're better than the rest of us who are actual citizens. What kind of disrespect for the country is that?
He's fake Latinx. It's true. His name is Robert. He goes by Beto to try to sound like he's Hispanic. Mike and Alex, thank you guys both so much. Alex's book is called Breaking the Law. Now would be a great time to read